all, it's my pleasure to introduce keynote speaker Ralph Velasquez, no relation, the Executive Director of Sustainability with Tremco Roofing and Building Maintenance, and also a contributing editor of ours here on Greenroofs.com. Or at least he used to be. You knew him more recently as the Sustainable Roofing Technologies editor, where he wrote about sustainable roofing, waterproofing, and building envelope solutions, including vegetated roofs, photovoltaics, including building integrated photovoltaics, cool roofing, and bio-based materials. And before that, he was known as our ASTM editor, where he would report on the semi-annual ASTM meetings pertaining to green roof issues. Because his new executive duties at Tremco Roofing will not allow for a regular column, he agreed to stay on as our first guest contributing editor, and now writes Perspectives from the Green Boardroom, which shares his unique view of sustainability and sustainable operations. But most importantly, Ralph has been our colleague and friend for over 7 years, and his friendship and support of Greenroofs.com is greatly appreciated. With his long service to the green roof industry, we're delighted that Ralph agreed to be one of our very important keynote speakers for our inaugural virtual summit. Ralph will now share with you CSR, Corporate Social Responsibility, the who, what, where, when, and how. Enjoy.
I want to welcome everybody today. My name is Ralph Velasquez. I'm the Executive Director for Sustainability for Tremco. And today, over the next 20 to 30 minutes, we want to talk about corporate social responsibility. Maybe a term you've heard, maybe a term that you are trying to understand a little bit better. But my hope is today that as we talk about what CSR is, that you'll be able to take back those ideas and incorporate it into your company. One of the most common definitions for corporate social responsibility is the idea that we're going to take what we do every day for business and incorporate it into the needs of the community. It's the idea that we'll have a created shared value. That shared value is what we do on that business front, integrating in a holistic way back to our community. It really is the 3 P's of sustainability, which is people, planet, and profit. It's taking those 3 ideas, as it were, kind of the 3-legged stool, and combining them into one idea. So if we can create that shared value, then everybody is going to be able to participate in that idea, both from the corporate perspective and at the community level. As we've defined corporate social responsibility, we now want to look around the world and see what countries are utilizing that idea in their respective areas. And we really have 2 different attributes of CSR, or corporate social responsibility, that the world looks at as they divide those into 4 different tiers. The first aspect is, what is the interest of the investors? In other words, how important is it for the investors in those respective companies that are in those countries, how they attach a value to corporate social responsibility. The second aspect is, how do the companies within those countries report out their sustainability activities? Do they incorporate their financial results as part of their reports? And the more integrated those reports are, and the more interest there is, then the higher tiers are established for those particular countries. And we have 4 different tiers, because we have a different combination of the investor interest as well as the interest relative to those reports. So when we look at Tier 1, we find Germany, the UK, Spain, Italy. Those are the countries where we have a high incidence of investors who are looking at those non-financial issues, and we have a high interest in how we report out. In other words, again, we're combining the financial report along with the aspects of sustainability. As we move down into Tier 2, countries like the United States, as an example, we find that there is an interest in how we talk to the investor community, but there is although it's a growing interest, it is a lower aspect of how we report on our social aspects and how our corporations interface with those social issues. As we move down that ladder into the Tier 3 countries, we find that begins to drop off. There may be a high interest from the reporting aspect. These would be countries like South Africa as a good example, where there is an interest in the reporting aspects, good accountability there, but the investor community really hasn't latched onto those ideas. And then we drop down into that fourth category, and that's where both of those attributes are much lower on the scale. Again, where the investors have less interest, where the reporting is not as integrated or holistic as what you would see in those higher tier countries. And those would be places like Korea, perhaps maybe Japan, a lot of the Asian parts of the world where those ideas are relatively new to them. So as we look again around the world, we find that various countries are at various areas of development, and we're going to focus now on the United States. As we move to the United States, we start to look at some of the top companies that have taken the concept of CSR and fully incorporated it into their organizations. You're looking at a list of some of the top corporations in the United States, the top 20 that are listed there. This is the cream of the corporations in terms of how they handle corporate social responsibility. And as you're scanning the list, you'll see companies like the Campbell Soup Company, which we want to highlight, Coca-Cola, the DuPont organization, but there's others like Gap as an example, who have been doing corporate social responsibility for the last couple of decades. So as we move forward, I want to highlight these three organizations and talk about some of the specific goals that they've taken and incorporated into their respective companies. The first company we're looking at is the Campbell Soup Company. And they have a list, as you're looking on the screen, of several different objectives that they want to incorporate into their social responsibility throughout the organization and all their divisions. And as you're looking, what you'll see is that they've focused on areas like their employees, where they're looking at their communities that they operate in. They look at nutritional values to the products that they produce. And as you look through each one of those, you'll see that the idea is that it's a holistic approach, that they're looking to provide not only value to their customers, but that it's done in a way that's very nutritious at every aspect. Nutritious to their emotional well-being if we're talking about their employees. It's nutritious to the communities because they're enriching the communities by investing back into those areas through a variety of programs. And of course, they provide an agricultural-based business. So they're looking at all the areas of how they obtain their produce to try to make it as locally produced as possible. They're considering issues like transportation, of how they're going to get those agricultural products from the areas that they're grown into their respective factories and producing them. They're looking at the packaging that those products go in. So as you think about a company like Campbell Soup every day, behind the scenes in their factories and their administrative functions as an corporation, they're looking to take those ideas of sustainability and be socially responsible of how they not only acquire the product, how they move the product, how they manufacture the product, how they deliver it to the consumer at the end of the day, and how they treat their employees throughout that process. Now we're looking to a company that all of you know every day, and that's the Coca-Cola Company, based in Atlanta, Georgia. And as you look at this company, you see that they've taken the ideas of corporate social responsibility and they've incorporated in the areas of energy efficiency, the areas of water, the areas of sustainable packaging. And their goal is in the areas of energy efficiency and how it impacts things like the greenhouse gas emissions, is that by 2020 they want to reduce that impact by 15%. So this is the goal that they've been working on from the very beginning of their corporation, finding things like that the biggest impact to that corporation for greenhouse gas emissions wouldn't be the things like transportation that you might expect. It's not the trucks, it's not their bottling plants, but it's a thing that you interface with every day. It is where you go to the dispensers and you obtain that can of Coke or bottle of Coke. It has the biggest impact to them as a corporation. So they've been working very diligently and revamping how they put together those units, making them more energy efficient, and by doing that, they're going to impact their carbon footprint to the community that they operate in and around the world. You also look at their water resources. You know, it is said throughout the world today that water might be the next issue that we fight a war over. And for those that are in some of the drought areas of the country, even today, in the United States, down in the southern parts of the country, water is a valuable resource. In fact, only 3% of the world's water is considered clean water and usable water. So when you have a corporation like Coca-Cola whose products are based upon a high usage of water, as they obviously utilize that as a base component in their finished product, how they deliver it through all their packaging, water is a key component. So one of their goals is to reduce that water usage throughout their facilities. In fact, to be able to return back from the source of the water the same amount of water they utilize, recapture it, reclean it, and bring it back in a closed loop system. So water is one of their key objectives. And then finally, again, we get to the issue of packaging, sustainable packaging. You know, aluminum cans are one of the highest recycled components in the world. Aluminum can goes through those cycles and often comes back out as an aluminum can, but there's a lot of other waste that occurs in a operation like Coca-Cola, and so they think about the sustainable packaging, how they deliver it, whether it's got the plastic components, how those plastic components are utilized, or how they're captured. So Coca-Cola is trying to be a very responsible corporate citizen by attacking the issues of electricity, their carbon footprint, the water issue, and their packaging. Our final case study that we want to look at is the DuPont Corporation, a very old chemical company that many of you know. It impacts your life every day in so many different products. And as you look at the DuPont Corporation, you'll find out that they've taken a little bit of different approach of how they incorporate the ideas of CSR, or corporate social responsibility, and that is they focus very heavily on their products. It is the idea and the concept of green chemistry, green chemicals. As we look at the everyday use of products in the world that are around us, there are products that perform very well, but some of the chemicals that are in those products are not the kind of end-use components that we would like to keep in them. And DuPont's recognized that as a chemical company. So they're working diligently through their CSR initiatives to reduce their impact in green chemistry. And what you'll see is that they're investing billions of dollars on an annual basis in their R&D to find products that are not only going to be the kind of products that you as a consumer will want to purchase, but ultimately will have less impact to the environment because they've been able to find chemistry alternatives to their current formulations. And you'll also find that they embrace the idea of wellness and health, that these products that you interface with on a daily basis is going to have a lesser impact to your environment, a lesser impact to the landfills that are around them, a lesser impact to the water and the air that we breathe. So I think the very interesting aspect for DuPont is that as a chemical company, an industry that is very difficult because of the very nature of what they do every day, that they are looking for ways to innovate by investing into their R&D and fundamentally changing how they deliver a finished product to the customer. Now that we've looked at what companies are doing, some very specific corporations like the Campbell Soup Company and DuPont, I think the question that always comes in everybody's mind is, why should I care? It is really human nature to ask, what is it for me? And why should we take something like corporate social responsibility and do that in our own organization? There are many reasons why you'd want to consider it. There are issues amongst your customers. The customers that you sell to every day are beginning to grapple with those issues. They're looking at their employees. They're looking at the issues of wellness. They are looking at chemicals of concern. They're looking at their packaging. So your customers are asking you, or will be asking you on an increasing basis, what are you doing to be socially responsible with the way that you conduct your business? There's the issue of innovation, the ability to innovate. As you begin to think of your organization and how it incorporates itself within the community, what you begin to find is that you begin to innovate. You begin to think about different ways of doing things, how you might move a product, how you might package that product, how you might deliver that product. And as you grapple with the key issues of sustainability, issues of water and energy and carbon, you begin to think about what you do every day. And of course, in the vegetated roof industry, that's something that we know very, very well. Some of the other industries, it's not as well known how to take the products that they sell and innovate with those. But innovation is a key aspect of social responsibility. There's the issue of safety. Every day in our organization and organizations around the world, you want to make sure that your employees, the day when they come in that day to work, that they leave the same way that they came in. They go home and they're intact as an individual. We owe it to our employees to be safe in everything we do. And being a socially responsible company puts safety high on the list of what you do every day. It's an aspect of being responsible to the environment that you function in. If you're in a community, you impact that community in the aspects of the environment. It really is the planet portion of that three-legged stool we talked about early on in the presentation of people, planet, and profit. So you have to think about, how am I impacting the planet around me? How do I impact the landfills? How do I move about in my everyday business? How do I travel? Do I take a plane? Do I take a car? Is there a way to reduce my impact? Is there a way to use technology to pull down my impact relative to the carbon footprint of my organization? So as we look through those aspects of being responsible, we find that there are many different ways to think about that organization. You're also looking at the aspect, of course, of why many of us have gotten into business, and that's to be sustainable in the long term, to produce a profit. We produce that profit for our stakeholders, those who have invested. If it's a single proprietorship in terms of how the company is organized, then you as the owner are looking obviously to turn a profit. But that profit is also for all the other stakeholders that are there. Every employee that you have, they and their families are looking to that organization to provide the means by which they achieve their family dreams and their goals and aspirations. So an organization has to think about being sustainable long term and providing that profit. It also gives you the ability to impact the organizations around you. Again, those parts of your community that you interface every day, the schools and the hospital organizations, and perhaps there's other areas, nonprofit organizations that you want to be able to reach out to as you go. It impacts the health of your organization. You're responsible by looking not only in terms of the safety issues that impacts the health, but how do you manufacture the goods? How do you move the goods? How do you package those goods? What products do your employees handle? All right, the very overall health and well-being. Are you promoting the wellness for them? In other words, are you encouraging them to think about issues like eating healthy and exercising on a regular basis? We all intuitively know that these are good things we should do individually. But I think what we're finding is that corporations are understanding that it is to their corporate benefit and their community benefit that they get involved with their employees and the community around them by encouraging these kind of behaviors. So as you've looked at this list, and there are many different other areas, just think about your organization and how you're going to fit. There are tremendous benefits. And what every organization has found out, those top 100 that we saw in the earlier slide, those top corporations, what they have found is as they have incorporated those concepts of social responsibility, that they have benefited largely. These are some of the most profitable organizations in the United States, and it's because they have instituted this concept of corporate social responsibility. As we've looked at CSR, corporate social responsibility, we've talked about what it is, we've talked about where it's been employed, both from a global perspective. We've looked at some of the best companies that have introduced that idea of being a responsible corporate citizen. We've looked at these key aspects of these corporations in terms of what's in it for them, what's in it for you as a small business owner or a large business owner. And now the question typically comes is, well, how do I implement this? What do I do next? How do I move forward? I think it takes, first of all, a seed of a thought that you understand that social responsibility is both doing well and living well. And once you take that seed, you begin to develop a vision. And that vision's got to start right at the top. So if you're a small business owner, it's got to start with you. If you're sitting in a large corporation, it's got to start at the very top of that corporation. That there's that understanding and embracing of that idea. You've got to take that idea and it's got to be broadcast amongst all the important stakeholders involved in your company, whether there's 2 of you in that company or whether there are thousands of employees that are involved. And get their buy-in. Those stakeholders have got to incorporate themselves into that vision. They have to embrace it and make it their own. And once you've done that, then you've got to sit down and start doing the hard work of laying out what those goals are. What are we going to do step by step? If this is a journey, and it is, It's a journey of time that you take your existing business and move it down the pathway of sustainability. You don't get there overnight typically. So what are the steps that we're going to take? Set those goals out. Set the vision, establish the pathway to get there, what those goals are. Establish the timelines of how and when we're going to achieve those goals. As you do that, you have to have all those stakeholders involved and understanding the time frame. And once you start that process, there really isn't an ability to turn back. You've got to be able to stay the course as you've set those goals. Once you communicate that vision amongst your stakeholders at the very top of the organization, you take those first steps and begin to implement that vision throughout the organization. And you'll need to stay focused, because what you'll find as you focus in on those goals, it is very easy to move beyond the scope of what you've established for each step and get beyond yourself or get ahead of yourself relative to the goals that you've established and the timelines that go with it. You're going to have to make some adjustments along the way. You're going to have to find that there's adjustments that will have to be made to some of those goals, either because you didn't scope out the project as well as you thought, maybe you were too ambitious, perhaps some of the things you wanted to achieve today are not possible given the current technology, or because of the size of the organization, there may be financial limitations to what you can do today. So you may need to shelve that idea for the future, or put it on hold, or move it down that timeline, but it is something that you don't want to lose sight of. So that team of stakeholders have got to be very in tune with what those goals and timelines are. I think the other thing that I failed to mention was that you need to have a champion right in the middle of all that. If there's not a person that's carrying the vision, somebody that doesn't have it just in their intellect, but really holds it within their emotional being, and they carry that forward, that person is going to be one of the key people in helping move that forward, because times will get difficult. It will be hard at times to implement the vision that you establish with those stakeholders right at the beginning. So that champion is going to be important to help you carry that time through. And then you want to expand and move how far you take that vision. You take those initial stakeholders and you move that out into the organization. All right, so you're keeping a focus on it, you're expanding that message throughout the organization, and I think as you begin to go down the pathway of your goals, you want to find those early successes that begin to come up. It's often, many times, people refer to that as the low-hanging fruit. It's not a term that is endearing to me, but I think there are those early victories that you can find, and those early victories need to be celebrated, because it helps bring the team together. That what looks like a very difficult task, when it's broken down into these steps, are things that they can do. It helps spread the message across the organization. So the how of implementing CSR, or corporate social responsibility, is really not as difficult as it may first seem. It's taking a very large idea, an idea that you may not fully even understand yourself, but that you've embraced it, you've articulated it, you've given it a timeline, you've given it a pathway, you've put people around that idea, you've championed that idea, you move it forward, you adjust as you go, and then you celebrate those successes. And then you're well on your way to incorporating corporate social responsibility. Now that we've tackled the question of how do you implement it, and I know your minds are running 1,000 miles a minute, you're beginning to think about your own organizations, how you're going to take those first early steps, what challenges you may have. And one of the next questions that comes to you as you're thinking about those challenges is, when do I do this? Well, it's a question every corporation's got to answer, and the answer is really different for everybody. But there's never a convenient time really to move forward. The question comes in your mind, when do I make the jump? When do I make that investment of time, resources, people? And you look at your organization, there is, of course, a good time to make that move for you, and it's going to be different for every organization. But my challenge to you, my challenge, no matter whether you're, again, a two-person small business or you're a large corporation, is that today is the day. Now is the time. If you look around the marketplace, if you talk to your customers, if you talk to the folks that you interface with every day, you will find these issues are pressing. We cannot wait to take these ideas of sustainability and be responsible as corporations. Somebody has got to lead the charge, and indeed, We saw earlier some of the largest corporations are leading the charge. And I think we need to think of it as our ability as corporations to lend ourselves to these changes. So my answer to that question is make the leap as soon and as fast as you can. Challenge yourself. Challenge your organization. Challenge those that are around you that now is the time we move forward with being a socially responsible corporation. As we've talked about, when is a good time to do it? Tremco had to answer the same question. When do we make the leap? We decided that now was the time. That now is the time that we as a corporation make that same leap. So we went through a lot of the same steps that I have outlined about how you have to implement a vision. We talked about getting the stakeholders involved, having right at the very top of the organization, the president of our group, our Building Solutions group, taking that vision to all the stakeholders. We talked about what time frame we wanted to get it done in. It was a 10-year journey for us. What steps do we take? How are we going to implement those steps? We began to look at focusing those steps in all our different companies and visions. But you know what? One of the most important aspects we had to answer amongst ourselves is if we're really going to do this, we have to showcase that what we are telling others we're going to do, that we do in our own corporation. Hopefully, as we've gone through this journey together in these few minutes talking about corporate social responsibility, you've seen in the background different aspects of things we've done in our own corporation. As you look over my shoulder, you see a wind turbine that's been installed on our property. That wind technology is to demonstrate the ability, of course, to be able to harness a renewable energy source, the ability to take wind and turn it into usable energy, which we do in our facility. We've also been able to use renewable energy with solar. We've taken one of our buildings that's on the campus next to the main building, our south building, and we outfitted that facility with the latest solar technology available in the industry. Between that wind tower that you saw and the solar technology, we've been able to provide anywhere from 10 to 12% of our electrical needs on site with renewable clean energy. It's our way to answer the question of carbon footprint and greenhouse gas emissions, that we could reduce and lighten the load on the community that we operate in every day. We have incorporated cool roof technologies, the ability to make the building cooler, take that heat off the building, again, impacts our ability to reduce our carbon footprint. You've also seen, and we're in a conference that's talking about vegetated roofs. It's near and dear to the hearts of so many of you that have joined me today for these few minutes. And you see the same technologies that many of you employ, we've done in our building. We've incorporated living walls. We've taken the idea of an older building, a 1969 building, and we've wrapped it with high energy efficient solutions that are around the entire building. We've looked at taking the water that impacts our sites and our parking lots. We installed a 15,000 gallon reservoir system where we can capture that water and utilize it to water our vegetated roof and our landscaping that's around our building. We've looked at the mechanical systems and we've upgraded those. We've attached to the building every technology that we had available to us, including the windows and the gaskets and sealants and how air and moisture moves in the building. These are all the technologies at our disposal that we utilize to meet that vision. It was important to us, it was critical to us that we could demonstrate to our customers, those stakeholders that partner with us for every day that we've been in business, over 83 years, that what we tell them, we do in our own building, that we're eating our home cooking, as it were. It's a way to demonstrate for those who are interested what options they may have available to them. So we've looked at our building, we've changed how we impact our operations. We look at the amount of materials that leave this site every day, and we've reduced significantly what comes out of our everyday operations and our administrative, our cafeteria. We have compostable materials that come out of our cafeteria. Out of this vegetated roof, we take strawberries and blueberries and we bring them down into our cafeteria on everyday use. I've had the pleasure of partaking of some of those. It's a way to speak to health and wellness. We've instituted walking programs throughout our organization to encourage our employees to think about their fitness. We've encouraged their safety. We've hired new safety directors. We've increased our safety programs around the corporation. I tell you all these things as a case study of how you can begin to look at where you live as a company, as a corporation. Now, maybe you don't have a campus this size. Maybe you have one significantly larger than the campus that you've seen as we've gone through these few minutes. The idea is you've got to get that vision in your minds. You've got to incorporate it in your organization. You've got to move forward. You've got to take that time and communicate that well with your organization. You've got to live it every day. That is what this building is all about. It's our way to live every day what we tell our customers and the broader community of what corporate social responsibility is. It is living what we speak every day. We've talked about what it is, who's doing it, where it's been done, how you're going to implement that idea. We've looked at companies that have taken that concept and successfully integrated it into their businesses on an ongoing basis. I've even shared with you what Tremco has done and some of the challenges that we've had along the way. So I've ended up with this thought, and this is my hope. My hope is that each and every one of you, that everyone who's involved in a corporation would embrace that idea. Embrace the idea that you are going to be responsible for every aspect of how you impact the world that you live in, with people, planet, and even the profit that sustains those corporations. Because if we do that, we truly will create a legacy that we'll be proud of, and then a legacy that we will leave behind us for all those that follow us. We truly will make a difference. Thank you.